Darwin Hamilton. I'm a fifth generation Austinite. I was born in 1973 on East 11th Street. My family had been there since the 1870s on my father's side. His mother was born in 1910. My father was born in 1935. And actually, I grew up in East Austin, lived there for most of my life until 2005 when I moved to Pflugerville. My great-great-grandfather Thomas Dedrick was a slave, and he built that house and passed it down to his son, William Thomas Dedrick, who is in the centerpiece of the mural because that was the only portrait that we had available. And so for African Americans, that's significant because that house remained in our family for 125 years, when most African Americans can't point to a place and say that this is the origin of your family. And when you think about coming out of slavery and Reconstruction, to own property, to own land is significant for black people because, you know, at one time, if you didn't own land as a white person, you couldn't vote. So for black people to own property and maintain it, this is considered the American dream. My father always told us that the city can't do anything but grow east, and so you're sitting on a gold mine. And when they came and done the appraisal and came back with the offer, it was quite insulting for us to accept, and so I refused. And once I refused, it was basically a no negotiation type of thing. It's take it or leave it, or we're going to sue you for the property through eminent domain. In the 1970s, East Austin, east of I-35 in the 11th and 12th Street corridor was predominantly African American, black businesses, clubs, those kinds of things. For my exposure as a child, 11th Street was known in the 70s and 80s for pimping and prostitution. And so this was the world outside of my window as a child. And I vividly remember coming home from school from Blackshear Elementary, walking down the street, seeing prostitutes, seeing pimps. And so this was my exposure. About the 1990s, as with most inner cities, crack came to 11th and 12th Street. And so I was bit by the bug, if you will, to get some fast money. In 1992, at the age of 19, I was arrested and charged with possession of a controlled substance with the intent to deliver, and tax evasion based on an anonymous tip by a confidential informant. And so I believe my rights to have been violated during that search and seizure, so I tried the case. And for most African Americans, when you go to jury trial, you're challenging the status quo. And so the intent is to make an example out of you for challenging the status quo. And I call that a judicial lynching, because my sentence didn't deserve 22 and a half years. But one of the things the prosecutor said during my trial was, do you see how articulate he is? This is what makes him dangerous. And so if we unpack a statement like that, we can go back to Reconstruction, where whites resented blacks' social gains and educational gains. And so a statement like that is basically saying, well, if he were ignorant and black, then he would be harmless. Darwin Hamilton is a fighter. Darwin Hamilton is an intellectual. Darwin Hamilton is an advocate. That's who I am, someone that loves this community because my family's legacy is this community. And I want people to know the things that I did, because we make history every day.